It's going to feel a little bit like deja vu to you at home because it's a 1971 Cuda GB5 Blue, just like the Phoenix Cuda. But it's different. This is a nice little car. It was a factory 383, automatic on the floor, console, buckets, leather interior, rally instrument cluster, just a really good car to start with. This car is numbers matching engine, but not numbers matching transmission, which is a lot smaller of a detail than the numbers matching engine. We do have a date coded one for it, ready to go in. But overall, a really great starting point. One of the things about this car is it sat for a long time, I believe, in a very, very cold part of the United States. So cold that it freezes there. Now, Tony and I talked about this not long ago about preserving a car and storing it correctly. This is another example of something that didn't get stored correctly because while it was in that freezing weather, it didn't have antifreeze in it. So the block, we have discovered, is broken. So what happened to the block was it was stored in a way that allowed water to get into the cylinder, so that's bad. That'll mean that we're going to end up having to bore it over quite a bit, maybe even put a sleeve in it. But that's okay, we've done that before many times. What isn't good about the way it was stored was it was stored with no antifreeze in it. Typically speaking, when you come up with a broken block as a result of a freeze crack, unless it's some minor little hairline crack, that's the end of the engine. These areas are provisions that the manufacturer put into the block so when something stupid happens, if it gets way too hot or way too cold and the water either boils and expands or it freezes and it expands, it should kick out these freeze plugs, soft plugs. In this case, it didn't kick them out. When the water froze, it expanded, and when it expanded, it pushed that cast iron block out. You can see that there's a pucker to it. It did the exact same thing on this side. You can see that water got in there. This side's much worse. This side you can actually see how far it's busted up out of the way. So these two areas here are the areas that got broken. Historically speaking, that's the end of that block. But we want to try something different on this. I've got a company that I've been sending stuff to do some small cast iron welding. I told them about this one. They're willing to take it on. I wanted you, the viewers, to see what is involved in it, and you'll ride right along to see if it actually works or not. If this does work and the engine's able to run and hold water, not overheat, and have oil pressure, if all the things function after this shop is done with this engine, he will be able to maintain the original numbers matching engine in a 71 Cuda. Numbers matching means that the engine and transmission started life on the assembly line in that car, and they have the vehicle identification number stamped into them that matches the car. These are the cars that are called pure cars, no excuse cars. These are the cars that will sell for the most amount of money and in the shortest period of time because they are a no excuses car. So a good example of that is the big dollar 71 Hemi Cuda that sold at the Mecum auction a few years ago for $3.5 million. The reason that sold for $3.5 million wasn't just that it was a 71 Hemi Cuda convertible. They made 11 of them, and some of those have sold for a lot less money than that. This one sold because everything was right about it. Original engine, original transmission, no excuses, good colors, and it was a 4-speed. Those are all the things that drive this market. So that's why numbers matching and preserving a numbers matching engine is so important. It's interesting because the broken area in the valley is the same on both sides in the same area, meaning they're just horizontally opposed to each other. One side is a little bit worse than the other one, but they're in the same area of the block. The real downside to this is the shop is saying they're not able to tap that metal back down and weld it or drill the end of the crack and stop it and repair it. They literally have to cut out an area where all that broken metal is and weld in, graft in a new piece of cast iron. Now let me tell you one of the big risks to all of this. The shop that's doing the welding said, listen, I can't guarantee anything. I'll do it for you and I'm charging you for it. But I cannot guarantee the repair. This is on you, Mark. If you want to take a chance, we'll take a chance and try to do it. But if that thing overheats, if it cracks, if it swells out, if it doesn't have oil pressure, if it doesn't run right, it's on you. I'll just make the effort to do it. To me, I think it's worth the gamble because we know that the value of the car with the numbers matching engine is so much more than without the numbers matching engine. I think it's worth the gamble. When the guy at the shop started talking about how they're going to repair this, it was fascinating to me. I wish I could have gone up and watched it. They have to get this into a chamber where that cast iron is incredibly hot. You'll look at the guy's hands and they have these asbestos gloves on and everything looks super hot because it is. They've got a blanket around the engine trying to keep it cool and keep it from distorting while they're welding in this area. But I guess the trick to cast iron is it has to be incredibly hot. You have to have the right everything, the right material, donor material, the right heat, the right temperature, the right ambient temperature. So it's really a bit of a science and fascinating to see. So at this point, the shop has all of the welding done on it. They welded up both of the intake valleys, they welded up the side of the block. The bad part is when they did this, because so much heat was generated, that we had a twisted block. So when it went over to the machine shop, and again, same report I got from that guy, I'm not guaranteeing anything. I can't guarantee a darn thing. I will try to save this engine for you. And so when it's twisted like that, they have to lock it down into this jig, kind of like we do in our frames, and redo the line bore for the camshaft, for the crankshaft, untwist the engine, straighten it all back out again. And it's just hard to even imagine that you could do that. Now, one of the things they had to do along this process is after they got it all straightened out, they were able to bore at 40 thousandths over, which is great. I thought we were going to end up having to have sleeves in it. Another thing that they had to do was to put bronze guides in where all the lifters go, in the lifter guide area. And he told me that they're not even Mopar sizes, they're actually big block Chevy sizes. And it's something they do on big block Chevys. After it was all straightened out, they had to bore it out so far that it wouldn't take a Mopar lifter, so they put this bronze guide in there, and that's what it runs up and down on. But overall, I've never seen an engine ever in my life get that much engine work, that much stuff done to it at one time. So the good news is we do have the engine back from the machine shop, back from being welded up. Like I said, it was a complete mess. If you look at it during the process, you thought, man, there's no way. Right now, it looks good. I mean, even cosmetically, the repairs look good. On the outside of the block where the freeze cracks were around the expansion plugs, they cosmetically dressed that up real nice, gave it a texture, and you can't tell. Once that's painted, you never know that thing had a crack on the block. The intake valley, until the intake manifold goes on, yes, you can see the outside footprint of the repairs, but absolutely fantastic job. Now, if you recall, I mentioned because of the distortion to the block and it was all around the lifter area that they had to put the bronze bushings in there, the bronze guides. So you can see clearly that they stick up a little further than the factory ones. That doesn't matter, there's not an interference problem there. But if you watch that lifter itself, it is a really nice, tight fit. Probably tighter than it would have been against the cast iron. Now, whether or not it's gonna work, we're not out of the woods. Just because it looks great doesn't mean it's gonna work. So Doug's gotta get that thing put together.
Okay, so as soon as the engine came back, Mark handed it off to me for assembly so that I could get this thing put together, assembled, and on the run stand as quickly as possible. Since there was such a sense of urgency on this engine, I figured I'd enlist Brian's help to come over from assembly and help me put this engine together. So Brian is our new assembly tech here, and he's showing real promise. So I wanted to give him an opportunity to see how we put these engines together and why some of the things that we put on an engine have to be put on in a certain order.
I was absolutely thrilled when Dougie asked me to help assemble the 383. I've always loved cars, and I've actually built a few engines on my own. Of course, they were always Chevrolets or Brand X crap boxes, as Mark likes to call them. I was always a super fan of the show, actually, so I've watched all the old episodes of Graveyard Cars. And I always thought to myself, it would be amazing to actually learn from Dougie. He's such a great teacher.
I am going to set the head on there. Just like that. That's what we like. Yeah, so we got our Highland bolts here.
That's a Highland bolt?
That's a Highland bolt.
Yeah, how do you know that?
Well, it's an H. So we have to remember to put our wire holders on.
That's right. Just like that.
When I'm assembling the engine, I put both heads on. 17 bolts per head. I torque them down in 2 stages. I start with 45 pounds per square inch on one side, same on the other. Then I up the torque to 75 pounds per square inch and I go over all 34 head bolts again. This is our first engine build.
It is.
Together.
It's exciting, isn't it?
It is.
So we're gonna do this 68 times.
You had to say that. I am already confused. Man, you got this.
I'm trying.
I'm gonna retire soon.
I thought I retired once. And then I came to work here.
Why'd you do that?
I like building cars.
That is great. Me too. We have a pretty good crew here.
It's a good crew.
Sometimes people bring donuts.
Sometimes.
Sometimes people bring donuts. I'm not kidding.
Then
this is a great place to work. We got the heads on, finally.
So what do we got going on now?
So what we're doing now is dropping in our hydraulic lifters.
Okay.
So yeah, the machine shop did a real nice job. So after we got the heads on and torqued down, the next step is to put the valve train on. So we're gonna set our greased up lifters in all these lifter bores.
And just set them in.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I bet I know what's next.
Tell me.
Those push rods?
Push rods.
Push rods.
All right.
Show me what you like to do, Doug.
Well, we like to put a little grease on the end of them.
Okay. That's
So-
why you offered me a rubber glove, isn't it?
Yeah. So one point to get across is to lubricate all moving parts when you're assembling an engine. I like to use assembly lube on the lifters, the rockers, and all other moving parts when I'm putting these engines together. It's just a good practice. Drop them right down through these little galleys.
Through the galley.
Yeah, through the galley.
Okay.
Engines like lube.
Yeah, especially when they start for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mopar shuffle.
Okay. Mopar shuffle.
Mopar shuffle.
Yep.
We just lay them to the outside,
Ah.
rocker them in, rock the bolts right down into the holes like that.
Wow, look at that. Like I said, I've built a few crap box Chevys over the years, and I've learned that Mopar is definitely unique. So watching a master like Dougie and learning from him is a wonderful opportunity. Just that little trick on the valve train would save me an hour of fighting when I have to do this myself.
Hey, look at that.
That's a clever trick. If I was doing this in my garage, I'd have probably wrestled with it for like an hour.
Dropped them on the floor.
Yep, yep.
Put them down a little bit.
Okay.
If you want to keep your eyes on the push rods,
I will do that.
I'll bring these down a little bit. There we go. Okay.
I don't see a lot of adjustment in these.
The hydraulic lifters take up all the adjustment.
Wow,
That's the
neat.
beauty of a Mopar.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay, so I've got this one all ready to go.
You go for it. You do that so well.
Okay.
I did notice the bolts are different lengths. Is that supposed to be the case?
The reason the two inner bolts are longer is because the oil comes up through passages around these two long bolts.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to tighten these down to 35 foot-pounds.
Do we have a different torque wrench?
We do.
Oh, excellent.
So we're going to put the intake gasket in place with a little bit of a right stuff seal underneath it. So I'm going to run a bead of right stuff into the corners here, across the end rails. Okay, so after the valve train is done, the next step is to put the intake manifold. Chrysler uses a metal valley pan that seals up underneath the intake manifold. We like to use sealer underneath this valley pan to keep the oil in the engine. Nice little bead in the corners.
Okay.
And then we do that on both ends.
So are we adding any type of rubber gasket or cork gasket on top of that? Nothing, huh?
Right.
Interesting.
Nothing.
I guess the intake might be next, huh?
Okay, we got a manifold. Okay.
This is the front of the engine here.
This is the front.
Yep.
There we go, just like that.
I just came out to check in on everybody and see how it was going. And something didn't quite look right to me, but that's over there. Not unusual. But it turns out Doug in his crack shop ploy to train our new guy the right way, put the intake manifold on backwards. So he's turning that around now.
Well, I have learned that if I'm firing up an engine that Dougie gave me, to move the distributor 180 degrees before I start trying to fire it up.
And put the brackets on that I forgot to put on.
Oh, that's
Hey,
it.
I like that, Mark.
That'll go on just fine like
That'll
that.
be perfect.
It'll match the intake manifold.
Remember how I said this is the back of the manifold?
My
I do
mom
remember
used to
you saying
say,
that, and then you
Dougie's
talked
a
yourself out of it.
simpleton. And I'd say, well, he's not a simpleton, he's a sweet guy. That doesn't mean he's not a simpleton. And she's got one.
All I can say is I love Dougie. He knows his stuff, and hey, we all make mistakes.
Okay,
All right, Dougie, we ready for the valve covers?
we are ready for the valve covers.
Sweet.
So I bequeath unto you
Thank you very much.
the driver's side valve.
So probably one of the most important engines we've ever started. Maybe Wendell's numbers matching Hemi was as important, but this is very experimental. It had to be started right away. One of the things I told Doug and Brian was the minute that you get that thing put together, please get it on the engine run stand. There are things I need to know now. One is I got to make a phone call to the owner. This is an additional almost $20,000 went into saving this engine. But again, now the CUDA, instead of being a $100,000 car when it's done with a non-numbers engine, is $150 because it's got its numbers in it. So the math's there.
I got to tell you, being an old Chevy guy and now building a Mopar engine,
Uh-huh.
Mopar had a few things figured out, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then we're pretty close to running this thing, right?
Well, we have to put the exhaust manifolds on first.
Exhaust manifolds, all right.
I am so glad to have your help.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Dougie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir. There it is. All right.
We're gonna fire this up pretty soon.
Let's do it.
Okay, good job putting it together.
Thank you,
Job,
Mark.
bud.
I
Job,
liked
buddy.
your intake manifold
thank you.
idea, Doug.
Thank you.
Yeah, high five each other.
Oh, sorry.
You
I
know.
love the intake manifold. I loved all that. That was good stuff. Got a chance to see that. I thought I'd bring you two guys out here to hear it run.
Oh,
See the
fantastic.
fruits of your labor. All right, so I'm going to give it some coil power. You got the distributor in backwards?
Yeah.
There we go.
I know Mark wagered a lot on this engine being salvageable, so I'm as nervous as he is about running this engine and hoping that we don't have any strange noises or leaks or overheating issues. I know if this works, the customer will be happy to pay the extra money to save a very rare numbers matching 71 CUDA.
Okay, I feel better already.
Yeah, me too.
Oh.
Could you have the cam off a little bit? That's kind of part of your repertoire.
Wow, dude. I don't believe it.
The thing is starting up really nicely. It runs good for an initial fire up. The true test is time. It has to run on that engine stand. It has to run for 15 or 20 minutes. We've got to check the oil pressure. We've got to make sure it's not overheating. We've got to make sure we're not losing oil or water anywhere internally, causing a milkshake in the crankshaft or something. It's all up to that engine running and sustaining, because let's face it, they're gonna drive this car. It's not just gonna be sitting there in the garage for 5 minutes and say, ooh, we got the numbers matching engine. 80 pounds of oil pressure.
So our biggest concern is not that it just runs, but that it is a functional engine and it will hold water and oil pressure. So we have to let it run long enough to open up the thermostat, get it up to operating temperature, and watch for water or oil leaks.
That is amazing.
That sounds awesome, dude.
Man.
Little lifter noise.
Uh-huh.
I agree with the guys. This was a monumental build and engine fire up. A lot at stake here, so I was really glad I got to be a part of it.
How's our water in the radiator look?
About
Pretty good? Uh-huh.
80 pounds of oil pressure. Temperature starting to go up. Sounds really nice. Any leaks, squeaks,
I haven't
rattles,
seen
knocks,
anything.
clicks? I'll tell you, this is huge, and it's huge because you would not believe how many good cars don't have their original engines because of freeze cracks or windowing.
So far, so good. We had great oil pressure and no leaks.
And I'm not saying we can fix every one. That's the worst one on the planet. So you got a 70 Hemi Cuda, you got the original engine, but it has a hole in the side of the block.
Right.
We got the guys that can fix it.
Amazing.
Yep,
That
it
just
is.
changed the
It
value
is.
by $20,000 on this car. Everything is running just like it should. 185 degrees at the thermostat.
That's nice.
Beautiful. Best running little engine we've had in a while.
Yeah.
Our audience is dead. They're only 76 degrees.
Oh, man.
Old Pete's running about 86 in that yapper ahead. I'm innocently minding my own business, checking temperatures, and all of a sudden, careful!
Nice.
Twice. You know, you learn a lot of things here at Graveyard Cars, and one of the things I've learned is I've got to have cat-like reflexes.
Did it get you?
Yeah.
At least it's only 185 and it's not 250. No extra charge for that, gentlemen. Now, who do we have to thank for tightening that hose down?
I don't know.
Let's run through the gamut.
Let's
Pete, did you
see.
tighten that hose down? No, sir. You tighten that hose down where
no,
it goes on the
sir.
radiator?
No.
Who's
I
that?
didn't tighten it down.
Nobody tightened it down.
Oh, it tightened itself down.
I don't know.
Well, this is a miracle.
Yeah?
You never checked it.
I don't know.
You got a good close-up on
Look.
that?
Let me check it,
Get a
okay?
real
Let-
good.
let-
That's the look of a guilty man right there. That's that same look when they said, "Ted, what'd you do with that kid?" Nothing. I just found her in the dumpster. No. It's a cash and carry world. Sometimes you pay a little, mostly you pay a lot. Sometimes you pay all you have.
Hi, I'm Cousin Dougie. I'm here to tell you to like and leave a comment. Like and leave a comment. Also subscribe. And subscribe to our channel for more videos and full episodes of Graveyard Carz.
Did I do it? Oh God.